How did this happen?
The
deal. How'd you get here?
3 days of talking, I guess. It was basically Friday. What we started with was basically what we ended with, but just a firmer commitment than we had initially.
Did you promise to hold McConnell's feet to the fire on this?
Well, I mean, we did talk to the Democrats and said that we feel that we have a commitment, and I did go back to the leader's office and said that stronger language would be helpful. And he did give stronger language on the floor today, particularly about the fairness of the process, in terms of picking a bill or how the motion to proceed would work. And that was convincing to the Democrats.
Do you trust Mitch McConnell?
I do think that commitment made like this today with such fanfare, and this is for what will happen 3 weeks from now, I think we can count on it.
Does it show that compromise is back and possible?
I hope so. I hope so. We had this meeting, these meetings in Susan Collins' office, a growing number of people, and it was really good to see.
So compromise is cool again?
It'll be nice to see, actually, to have a process on the Senate floor that we haven't seen for a long time, really since, the bipartisan immigration bill that we did before, where we went through regular order and dealt with amendments, and everybody had their say. This will be much like that, I think.
You've been trying to negotiate a bill on immigration for months now, though.
Right.
What makes this different?
Well, what has been difficult is dealing with the White House and not knowing where the president is. And that was what was holding us back and holding Mitch McConnell from his commitment.
How has that changed?
No, it hasn't, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think it will change. I hope that it does. I hope that the president will say, here's what we need and here's what we'll stick with. But if we don't, what we've said is we'll come to the Senate floor, and the Senate will be the Senate again. And we'll pass something and then see if the president likes it.
Senator Flake, how long? Today?
We want to get a deal before March 5th. I think the worst outcome would be to get to March 5th and then try to jam something through which would look something like the legislative equivalent of DACA, where we make it constitutional, but it's no more certain for these kids, and they'd have to wait for something more certain again, and that's not good. I'm convinced a deal would be done, but it just wouldn't be permanent.
Do you believe the deal can be done without?
It's victory for, I think, everybody when the government opens back up. But we're climbing out of the hole. Let's get it. I mean, we haven't done anything yet other than open up the government, hopefully at about 2:30 when we have the final vote today.
Can a deal be done without the president's leadership?
Ultimately, the president is going to need to get on board in order for the House to vote on it. The House still very, much more so than the Senate, relies on the backing of the president.
Have you talked to Speaker Ryan about this? You have been friends.
I have. I've talked to him, and that's his message as well. It's going to be very difficult to pass anything through the House without the president's support. We acknowledge that. But what we're saying is we can't wait for the president to indicate his support before starting the process here. If we can pass a bill, obviously if it passes the Senate, it's a bipartisan bill by definition. It'll have at least 60 votes, I think closer to 70. And if that gets to the White House, I'm confident the president will say, I like this.
And has the Speaker...
And then it can move through the House.
Has the Speaker told you that he will put the Senate immigration bill on the floor?
No, he hasn't. So he doesn't have to. He can put another bill and we can deal with it in conference. That's how we usually work it. And so, no, he doesn't have to put the Senate bill. But I do think if the president gets behind it, then it's something that they'll want to put on the House floor.
What are the next steps for the bipartisan group of senators?
Well, to make sure that we have a bill. I mean, if we do go to regular order, somewhat regular order, we're not going to go through committee. But if we bring something to the floor, keep in mind that if everybody offers amendments and you deal with the process under the Senate rules, it can be a long process. So we're still going to need some consent and some kind of agreement to move ahead. And to do that, you've got to have a product that has wide support. And that's what we're hoping to do, is broaden the support that we already have with the bipartisan bill. We have 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans, but broaden that, add some border security elements that people on my side of the aisle want. I'm sure the Democrats will want some things as well. But if we can broaden that product, the support for that product, we can have an easier time when we get to February 8th.
And when you talk about border security, how much of that is a physical border wall?
Well, Senator Schumer indicated that he was willing to give additional money. What is on the table so far and what we have in the bill so far is what the president has requested for this next year. If additional commitments need to be made in terms of a mix of authorization and appropriation beyond that time, we'll do that. But is it going to be a wall? The president has said, not all of it is a wall. Some of it's a fence. Most of it's a fence, actually. But it's a border wall system, I guess you can call it. Whatever it is, it'll be additional border security, and that's important.